Hey guys, this is Fergal from Poker VIP. We are back for part 3 of our 20NL coaching series over on Betfair Poker. As I mentioned, this is part 3, so if you haven't seen part 1 and 2, I would recommend checking them out beforehand, but of course you do not have to. This is actually a direct continuation on after part 2. So we've kind of played through, we've built up these stacks throughout part 2. We're going to go ahead, we're going to be check calling with our ace-9 over on the left table. We're going to have the best hand here a ton, but we definitely don't really want to get raised on this kind of flop. And if we do get called, we're likely to be in trouble, or certainly at least not smashing his range for sure. Like if he calls, he's going to have a decent number of jack-X and a decent number of draws, so our hand isn't going to be faring fantastically well against that kind of range. So we're just going to check back here, see if we can induce some bluffs, and go for some small value on the river if he checks this back, and a favourable river card peels off. So let's see if we can get him to bite. We do not. I'd be very surprised if he has a flush here though, so I think we're just going to go ahead and bet really small, see if we can get picked off by a worse 9, which is definitely possible. He just goes ahead and folds though, which is also fine. King 10, we're going to be bringing in for a raise, and deuce 5, we just checked this in the blind versus blind. Obviously we picked up no pair, nothing at all throughout the hand, so we're just going to go ahead and fold. Raising the 5 deuce there wouldn't have been completely absurd, because of the way that hand went, it's pretty unlikely that that guy had a very strong holding, but I think we're better off just throwing our hand in the muck. We're definitely going to be able to pick out a lot of better spots, hopefully, throughout this session. As I've mentioned before in the previous couple of videos, the overall standard of this pool doesn't seem to be fantastically strong, so we can definitely, or at least hopefully anyway, be able to pick out some very profitable spots throughout. With the ace-7, we ISO'd, we flop top and bottom pair. We almost certainly have the best hand, so we're going to be putting out a very healthy c-bet and be looking for 3 streets here. And ace-jack, we are most certainly going to be bringing it in for a raise. And we flop top, so we're going to be going ahead and betting for value. 9-10, we're just going to fold. Using it as a 3-bet wouldn't be absurd, but there are definitely a lot better hands that we can be doing that with. So our 9-10 has no blockers at all. The 3-bet in itself, though, is never going to be that bad versus a button open. So it's not going to be crazy, but I think I prefer just putting our hand in the muck. Definitely don't love the 3rd club. We're going to just go into check call mode now. We're still going to have the best hand here, an absolute ton, but we're going to be in a very, very awkward spot if we bet and get raised. So I think I'm going to opt to play small ball poker here and just look to check it down, check call. If he bets again, we are actually going to have a close decision on our hands. Pretty happy to see this go check, check though, and for us to be good. Obviously when it goes check, check, we're almost certainly good. It's very unlikely that he is checking back a better hand there. We flop top 2 with jack and the 9 over on the right table, which again is almost certainly going to be the best hand. It's quite a dry board though, so we're not looking to slow play here. If he had bet, we would have been raising, and when we're check 2, we're obviously betting ourselves. Unfortunately, he has not picked up anything where he can continue with though, which is always a shame when you flop very strongly. 10-7 suited, we could consider defending that, but I think we're going to have better situations that or better hands that we can choose for defending there, so I think we can just go ahead and fold the bottom of our range there. 7-10 offsuit, we're going to be using it as a steal, and unfortunately we don't get any action when we flop top pair, top kicker with the ace-king over on the left table. One thing I've noticed about this pool, it tends to play very, very honestly. So I'm going to start making some adjustments to my game. I know I got caught out in an awkward spot in the previous video where we 3-bet and we fired a c-bet, and I think we fired 2 streets though, whereas when we got called, realistically, on the flop, we probably should have just given up. The pool does tend to play very, very honestly. We're going to have a lot of situations where we just have auto-profit c-bets where we can just fire with 100% of our range, and they're going to be folding enough that it's going to be profitable. And then when we do get called, we can just give up with the weakest parts of our ranges. This board I do not love at all. We're just going to be checking and giving this one up, I think. Pocket 10s though, we are going to be seeing a flop. It is one of the worst flops for us. When it's checked to us again on the left table, I think we are going to have to start betting ourselves. This is one of these situations now. Like, I mean, when it's checked to us twice, it's pretty unlikely that either of them have much. Certainly they don't have an ace, so I'd be very surprised if they do. They may have some king x for sure, but they're also going to have a ton of hands that just haven't connected at all. And we're definitely going to be able to fold out a lot of queen highs and so on here, which is fantastic for our hand. And even lower pocket pairs below the king, they're probably going to have to fold to this bet, to be honest. We do get called, so when we do get called again, just kind of going through what we just discussed, we have a situation where I feel that we can make a very profitable bet in the turn, but trying to continue and bluff them off worse now is going to be, bluff them off better, should I say, is going to be a mistake, because usually when he's called the turn, he's probably going to be calling the flop or the river as well. So we're just going to check and give this one up. Pocket tens, again, I'm quite surprised. I would have thought that we'd be able to fold out a hand like that, but I'm not shocked to see the call either, but again, we're not going to worry too much about it. And on the right table, I think I'm going to go for some thin value here. It's pretty difficult for us to beat here, so let's just go for some thin value. So ace-king gets there on the turn, and he doesn't bet himself at any point, which seems crazy. But yeah, as I said, we're good on the flop. He called us on the flop, we check back, and I think we can bet our 10 there for value. He's going to show us some worse 10s there for sure. And not a huge amount, so I'm not 100% sure about that bet, but it's never going to be that bad, and depending on the villain, it can be fantastically good. Some people are going to be calling there at 9x and so on as well, so we are in a situation where we can definitely bet quite profitably. That's one of those situations where a lot of people will be quite afraid to go for some thin value there. Now, while that might not have been the best opportunity for it, there are a decent number of spots where not betting is just criminal, really, where you just almost certainly have the best hand, and there are a decent number of hands that can call you that you are ahead of, so those are obviously the spots where you should be looking for to eke out that little bit of extra value on the river. I think that's probably one of the biggest leaks I see at the lower stakes games, just people not willing to bet thinly enough on the river. We flop middle pair here. I'm not in love with this guy's sizing at all, but we're going to call at least one street. If he barrels twice, we may give up. We're definitely happy to see him check, though. We should have the best hand here a ton, but there is not going to be a massive amount of hands that he can call us with that we're ahead of, so we're just going to check it back. We improved to 2 pair now, so we are going to be betting for sure if it's checked to us, and we're not allowing him to see the showdown that cheaply, so we're going to be putting in our value raise here. If we get re-raised, we have to fold, unfortunately, but I think he's going to have enough hands that can call this raise that we must do it. We're definitely not going to allow him away with a 25% bet on the river for sure. So he tanks down and he folds, which isn't a horrible result at all. We still pick up some extra money there, but obviously we would have preferred to see the call. It's very, very unlikely we would beat there. 7-8, we are going to go ahead and fold it as we are with the 5-4. The 9-10 suited, though, we can certainly look at playing. King 10, we may play depending on the action and the sizings that people choose before us. We just got to walk with the 9-10 suited, which isn't horrendous. We're just going to go ahead and see a flop with the King 10. We flop top pair, middle kicker, so not a hand that we're going to be looking for a huge pot with, but we are going to be putting some more money in ourselves for sure. We're going to start off with a check call, though. Check raising doesn't make any sense at all. So check call, probably going to check call the turn as well, and if he checks this back, I'll probably bet river on any non-spade. The rationale there is that he may convince himself that we have a flush draw and click the call button himself with kind of some jack X and so on. I don't love getting double barreled here, but we are way too strong to consider folding, so we're just in check call mode here. If he triple barrels, I'm going to be very sad, but I'm probably not folding. There are enough busted draws that we are ahead of. I'm definitely not in love with this situation at all, but as I said, I think we're just too strong to fold. So he has the ace-queen, which is nice. So that being one of the draws that has missed with his gut shot to the nuts. We river what is almost certainly the best hand, or very likely anyway. If it's checked to us, we're just going to be putting in quite a small bet for value. About a third of the pot seems about right to me. It's very hard to see what they can have that can call us with, so I think we just have to go small. This raise is very, very strange. I don't expect to be good here very often at all, but we're getting a very, very good price. I call, but I'm very unhappy about this in general. So yeah, he has this beat, which I'm not shocked at all, but these things happen. We improved the top set, but a possible flush gets there, so actual overall hand value has possibly even gone down slightly based on his entire range. We're going to be betting again here for value. He's going to have a decent number of king x that it will show up with as flush draw as well. We're just going to call and see if we can fill up now. I think it's pretty unlikely that our hand is ahead when he has raised the turn. He's probably going to bomb the river now, and I think we're going to have to fold, which is really, really gross, but it's just so unlikely that we're ahead here with the line he's taken, so as upsetting as this is, it's just so hard to see how he is doing this as a bluff, and we are behind all of his value, basically. So this sucks, but sometimes you just gotta throw them in the muck, as upsetting as it is. If we had filled up there, that could have been a very, very nice pot. Ace-6 offsuit, we are probably going to bring it in for a call. Versus short stacker, if we start 3-betting, it gets very, very awkward very, very quickly. We're not folding to the min raise, or to the min bet, should I say, on the flop, so we're just going to go ahead and click call. Ace high has a decent bit of showdown value. I mean, it's versus an under the gun opener, but it's only a 4-handed table, so it's essentially versus a cutoff open. We're just going to check call. We've improved to a pair, but that doesn't really change anything. We're going to check to him again and see what comes to be. So our ace-6 is indeed good. And ace-4 versus the cutoff limper, we are definitely going to be using to ISO. We don't hate seeing the fold at all. Obviously ace-4 isn't an amazing hand to be building a pot with out of position, but it's just that ISO in itself is going to be so directly profitable. And that's going to be one of those situations that I've talked about a bit before, where we just have an auto-profit c-bet on a huge amount of boards. Queen 9 offsuit, not going to be good enough for a defend. We're just going to go ahead and stick it in the muck. We are going to fire once on this board though, on the 4-6 jack. We get called, we're just going to be checking and giving up now. Again, kind of feeding into our theme that I was talking about earlier on, where a lot of the people in this pool are just playing very, very honestly. So when he calls, and he just like, no matter what he has here, I hate his sizing. If he's doing this with a flush draw, he doesn't need to make it this large at all. If he's doing this with the jack, with ace-jack, maybe to get max value versus my weaker jacks, but that's not all that likely, to be honest, after I've checked to him. So I don't love his sizing there at all. As I said, with whatever hand he may have. Jack Queen offsuit is good enough for a 3-bet bluff on the button. And Jack 5 suited we're going to use for a steal. See if we can get this through. We don't, but we flop quite an okay draw. We have a flush draw with a very weak gut shot. We hit our flush, which is obviously great news. We're going to be betting 3 streets now for value. I think I'm actually just going to overbet ship this. He's never going to be folding a 9 realistically, and I think he's going to show us a decent number of 9x. If he has a better flush, or if he has a full house, we're going to be losing all of our money anyway, so I think I like just overbet shipping here. So we get called, which is always nice. I think that's another spot where a lot of people lose value where they shouldn't be, versus a player who is going to show us up with the 9x there quite often. And like, keep in mind that he was a short stacker as well, so we're going to assume he's not an amazingly good player either. They're just never going to be able to fold a 9 there. And as I said, if it's one of those spots where if you are beat, realistically you're going to be going broke anyway, I just much prefer just going for the overbet for value myself. And I find I get paid there way more often than I should. As I said, people don't like to fold 3 of a kind or better at all. With the pocket twos here, when it goes back call, we're obviously just going to be folding. It's very difficult to see a scenario there where we're ahead. And obviously we don't have a huge amount of eights to improve. 9 deuce suited is going to be a fold. If there's a couple of limbers, we may consider completing though, which is why I'm not using the speed fold button. When it's folded to us, as much as I hate giving the big blind a walk in these games, as I said, sometimes you just gotta do it. Ace king though, something tells me we are not going to be giving walks in this hand. We're just going to be using it as a standard 3-bet in position with the 3x versus the cutoff open. So we'll just take that down pre-flop, which again, it's not a horrible situation. Obviously I would have preferred some action there, but it's not the worst case scenario taking down a raised pot with the 3-bet. A6 and pocket 8's both easy enough opens from the cutoff. We get re-raised super small. We're just going to go ahead, see a flop, see if we can improve to a set. And when we completely whiff, I'm actually just going to give this board up. It's not a terrible board. He shouldn't have a huge amount of queen x, but he's going to have a decent number of very strong pocket pairs, which is a concern. And hands like ace king and so on will still have a decent amount of equity against us. And if he's on a complete bluff, he's likely to continue bluffing. So the chances of us getting that hand to showdown when we're good are quite slim, I think. And we are going to be beat there an absolute ton as well, so I think trying to continue will be a mistake. Hopefully we get some action with our pocket kings. We're going to start it off with the raise and see what comes to be. We get a caller from the button, and let's see if the big blind opts to squeeze. He doesn't. Pretty good flop for us. There's a decent number of draws there, so it's not really one I would like to start slow playing on. But unfortunately, he has no piece of it, so it just goes snap fold. King 9, we're definitely never going to be folding it here. Well, now we might. But as I said, I wasn't going to be folding to the min raise from the button. I was debating whether I wanted to use it as a 3-bet bluff or as a flat call. I think I was going to flat call there. When it gets 3-bet here, with a bit more information, this might not be a horrible spot to call 4-bet as a bluff. But again, without that information, we're just going to go ahead and fold. No need to get overly fancy here. We're getting 2-1 and we have position with a hand that has the potential to flop a straight, so we're going to go ahead and call. We flop an open-ender, which is nice. We're happy just to check it back though, and when he checks to us twice, we're going to fire a c-bet here. Or a delayed c-bet on the turn, or not even a c-bet, sorry, a delayed stab on the turn, shall we say. Fortunately our 9 high is good, so we get that through. Deuce 7, again, not going to be good enough for a button open. The ace 4 offsuit, we're not folding it. I think I'm just going to call though. Using it as a 3-bet definitely isn't crazy, but I think I prefer just calling in position. It's one of those hands where I'll definitely mix up my strategy a little bit. I'm never just going to be doing the same thing over and over again. Here we have a pair. It's not a very good pair, and this guy's stack size is going to make this very, very awkward. I think this might be one of the boards where I'm actually just going to be check folding. As much as I don't like doing it, that's what we're going to do, I think. We're just going to be betting again here for value with our 2 pair with the ace 4. We can really credibly represent a huge amount of missed draws on this kind of board. When we started betting on the turn, it's very unlikely that we have a made flush ourselves. We can definitely have a huge amount of missed spade draws for sure. So I wouldn't be shocked to see a light call down here if he's in any way a thinking player, but I mean the kind of hand that we have is pretty difficult for us to show up with. For us to have checked back at any top pair hand and then to have turned top and bottom pair. So we do get called there, which is always nice. Always nice to get called when you have them beat. King Deuce, we're going to go ahead and open it. This is a little bit loose from mid position, but I think it's going to be okay. I don't love getting called. This is the one player at the table that I didn't really want to get called by. It's just going to be a bit more tricky to play versus a short stacker of this size. We're going to fire 1-bet here and see if we can take this down though, which we do, which is always acceptable. We're never folding any, like we're calling super wide here when the button min raises, even though we're out of position, and a hand like 9-7 is just an absolute no-brainer. Using it as a 3-bet would not have been absurd by any stretch, but I think calling is absolutely fine as well. And I think we're just going to be giving up the 9-7, even though we flopped a pair. It's a pretty bad board for us in general, so I think we're fine just giving this one up. And ace-9, we have position over on the right table. We have flopped a pair, albeit a very weak one. I'm definitely happy just to check this down and try to realize our showdown value. I don't really want to be building a big pot here at all. So I think our best chance of winning any money here is just checking and trying to induce. I mean, when he's checked us 3 times, the chances of us having the best hand here are huge, but it's just impossible to see what he can call us with that is worse realistically. I think we're just going to be checking back here. Some hands like pocket 10s and pocket jacks have us beat and are going to play this exact way, but he's very rarely going to show us a king or a knight or a king or a queen there. So more often than not, we will have the best hand. I think the only hand that he can call us with there is a worse 9, like hand like 9-10 maybe. But I think just checking back and taking our free showdown is going to be better than trying to get some value there, I think. It's just one of those spots where it's just a little too thin in my opinion. And as I said, when he's checked back there, I wouldn't be shocked to see him with some sort of showdown. And a lot of his showdown does beat us, obviously, so it's just going to be a tricky spot to extract value from worse in general. King Jack offsuit here, definitely could have used it as a 3-bet again, but I opted not to, and we're going to fire out a bet here now. He's going to be betting most of his aces, so we have close to the nuts when he's checked this back. There are some diamond draws and so on that he may have picked up on the turn that we want to make sure we extract value from. This is a pretty good flop over on the right table. We're going to be going for a nice chunky bet. We're super deep here, which is very exciting. Unfortunately though, he just folds immediately. Just noticed as well that they have smartphone capability on this site, which is awesome. Anyone who's playing on a smartphone, typically speaking, won't be amazing. Now that's not obvious. That's obviously a big generalization, and it's far from accurate. But a lot of people, they're going to be more distracted, shall we say? So a lot of people that I play, like I know when I'm out, like I do play on my phone from time to time, but I know that I definitely don't play my A game when we do. So yeah, it's just kind of one of those situations where it is quite nice to see people out and about on their phone, because they're just going to be so distracted so often. We get raised here, and this is just going to be a very sad fold, I think. We're going to be in a very awkward spot where we're not really going to be sure where we're at, so I'm just going to go ahead and fold. He's going to be able to put us under so much pressure there. So when we are ahead, we're going to struggle to get to showdown, and when we're behind, he's going to be able to extract a lot of value from us, so it's going to be a very awkward situation. Unfortunately, the king and the queen offsuit gets there on the river, but we can't complain too much. They had a gut shot and they had a flush draw, so absolutely nothing wrong with their line at all. Ace king, we are going to be 3-betting. We're probably going to be looking to get the money in versus MKM if they wish. He's going to be jamming a decent number of worse hands than ace king, as well as a decent number of pocket pairs that we're flipping against. And if it's folded to us, it's obviously just a very standard open. Same with ace jack, we're going to be raising it from the button for sure. Very, very good flop over on the right table. We're going to start off with a c-bet. And we're just going to check back ace jack here. Ace jack has a very decent amount of showdown value on this kind of board, so we're happy just to check it down. If we are behind, it's very unlikely that we're going to get him to fold, especially after checking back the flop. So we're just going to take our showdown value, and he gets there on the turn, which is unfortunate, but these things happen. We're just going to bet again for value with our ace king, and he's called very quickly. I'm going to go on the larger side here for sure. I don't think he's planning on folding a king that often, and I think he's going to show his king quite often with the way he's played it, so we're just going to bet on the larger side here. The 10 is actually a great card as well, because it reduces the combos of king 10 you can have, which is definitely possible. Just less likely now, obviously. I'm actually quite surprised to see the fold there. I would have expected, when he's called so quickly on the turn, I think he's going to show us a king there an absolute ton, and if he did fold a king, good fold to him, but I just don't think that's overly likely. The ace-king here, we're in a kind of similar situation to where we were with the ace-jack, where we're going to have the best hand an absolute ton, but we're very rarely going to be able to fold out better. So I'm happy just to check this down. We haven't improved at any point, so trying to get value from first from a worse ace-high is definitely ambitious, and trying to fold out a better hand is very, very unlikely. And when we river the ace, though, we do have to go for some value, albeit it's very unlikely we're going to get paid. But we're just going to have the best hand here an overwhelmingly large majority of the time, so we have to try. He may have some worse ace-x for sure that can call a bet, but if he doesn't have that, he's almost certainly going to be folding. 7-8 suited is going to be an easy open on the button. We flop an open ender, but obviously it's a monotone board, which we're quite upset about. I think we're going to be able. I think betting here is going to turn a higher profit than checking back. Both are fine options, but this board is going to be quite bad for him with a huge part of his range as well. So I think I like just putting in a really small bet there, just trying to take it down there and then, rather than checking back and relying on hitting at some point. And we're going to be ISOing versus the limper with the king and the 10. We're flopping some straights today. Very, very nice flop for us. Unfortunately, he does not opt to c-bet. Unfortunately, I think we're going to be taking this down quite frequently here, but we have to try. And I'm going to go for an overbet here. If he has a hand that can call any bet with, he's probably going to be calling an overbet as well. So let's just go for max value. He's going to show some decent number of 2 pairs there. He's definitely going to have all of the ace-x that are 2 pairs there in his range, except for maybe whatever the bottom card was. And if he's improved to 2 pair, he's going to really struggle to fold there. And if he only has a lone queen there, which is somewhat possible, he's probably going to be folding to any sizing anyway. So again, it's just one of those situations where I think we're going to be able to extract more money in the long run by going for the overbet. Even though we are going to be folding out some hands on occasion where he may have called a smaller bet, I think the overbet's going to be absolutely fine. King 9 offsuit, we are going to fold, as we are the ace 3, just not good enough to open from mid position, but we would have been opening it from the button, but when it's open for us, we're just going to go ahead and fold it. Again, king queen, obviously a very, very straightforward open. Pretty bad board for us though. The problem with this board in particular is that even his ace highs probably aren't going to fold if we c-bet. Like if this was say deuce 4 7, I probably would throw it a c-bet here to fold out his his ace highs and so on to beat us. But I think there's a pretty decent chance that they are going to call with their gut shot and 2 overcards to the board. And we're gonna start betting now. When it's checked to us twice, it's pretty unlikely that he has anything, so I think we're going to be able to take that down quite successfully. The 6-10 offsuit is not going to be good enough for a steal, unfortunately. The king 8 suited, though, we will be defending with. Certainly in position versus the small blind, but they just opt to give us a walk, which is a fantastic result as well. Again, the king and the jack of this offsuit variety, we will almost certainly be playing, barring a raise and a 3-bet behind us. And I think this time I'm going to go ahead and use it as a 3-bet. Again, this is one of these hands where I will definitely use a bit of a mixed strategy. I'm not always going to be doing the same thing with it. 3-betting is fine, calling it is fine. Just once we're not folding it, that's the main thing. So we had an under the gun limper. We ISO'd and we got 2 callers. I'm not in love with my hand here, so this bet is kind of actually a little bit tilting because I would have preferred to be betting larger myself. But I think raising here is going to put us in a lot of awkward spots. So I think I'm just going to call and keep the pot a little bit smaller. This donk bet, though, I'm not a fan of at all. Nor am I a fan of the 3rd spade. I am going to call again, though, as much as I don't like this situation. I think he's going to be taking this line with a decent number of worse 10x. Not anymore, though. Not anymore. When he just jams like this, we're just folding all of the time. We possibly could have considered a fold in turn there, but I think that's way too weak. The more I think about it, the more ludicrous that is, actually. I think I'm absolutely fine with how we played it. Raising the flop is the only potential point where I might have changed my plan there. And again, I don't think that I hate the way I play that at all. So we have improved to a pair, or two pair should I say, of 7s and 4s. We're just going to call down now. We're going to have the best hand here quite often. The 8's a great card for us. It reduces the amount of 8x he can have. I mean, I'm not loving this, but we're not folding either. I wouldn't be shocked to see a stone cold bluff here. He has the straight, which isn't absurd by any stretch, but I just think it's one of those spots where we kind of just have to pay him off. You definitely see some short stackers just going absolutely berserk there in those kind of spots, so I wouldn't have been shocked to see a bluff, but yeah. So we are going to be betting again here. If this guy has a 9, which he would probably be calling a flop bet with, he's probably going to be calling. We want to make sure we extract value from hands like 10 jack, which are now drawing dead. We don't want to rely on them hitting a straight, so we want to be betting again. The king is possibly a fantastic card for us if they have the jack 9. I think this is a spot where I'm just going to go ahead and overbet here again. It's jack 10 rather, not jack 9. If he has a straight, they're never going to be folding. If he has a 9, it's unlikely they're folding, so we're just going to bet big. And unfortunately, he snap folds. Possibly may need to readjust my overbetting strategy. We've definitely gotten a lot of folds in situations where I was actually kind of expecting to get calls quite frequently, so maybe people will be reacting differently in this pool to 3-bet, or to overbets rather. In that case, that means I'll need to start overbetting more as bluffs rather than with my value hands. And I think that's actually going to wrap up the session now. I'm just going to sit out the next hand on both tables. So as I said, this has been Fergal from Poker VIP. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I will be back again for part 4 quite soon, guys. As always, if you have any questions, any queries, anything at all, feel free to leave them in the comments section on the various media. I do always check them, so if you have a question for me in particular about any hand, feel free to post it, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Take care.